This beautiful, serene natural spring in Texas is known as Jacob's Well. It's a perfect spot for a refreshing swim and an absolute dream for adventure seekers and divers. But beneath its calm, inviting surface lies a maze of underwater caves that have lured many to their doom. In the summer of 1983, one such adventure turned tragic. Little did Richard Patton know that the dive he took that very day was going to be the last dive of his life. This tragedy marked a dark chapter in the history of Jacob's Well, and we'll be going deep into the details. So, what exactly makes Jacob's Well so dangerous? For starters, the cave system is incredibly complex. There are tight passageways, sharp turns, and false exits. The deeper you go, the more these factors come into play. Even experienced divers can get disoriented. The silt and gravel on the cave floor can be easily disturbed, reducing visibility to zero in seconds. Then there's the human factor. Diving in such conditions requires not just skill, but also a calm mind. Panic is your worst enemy underwater. Unfortunately, in the case of Richard Patton, panic likely played a role in his tragic end. Let's rewind back to 1983. Richard Patton and Clark McConnell, who were students at Texas State University in San Marcos, was trying to obtain their instructor certifications in open water diving. Texas State offered an advanced diving course taught by a master diving instructor named Don Dibble. Richard Patton and his companion were no ordinary divers. They were highly experienced, intelligent members of the advanced diving class. On the evening of Wednesday, November 23, 1983, at about 8:30 p.m., they geared up with their scuba equipment and lights and descended into Jacob's Well. Their dive began smoothly as they moved through the first and second chambers, eventually reaching the entrance of the third. It was at this third passage, which was supposed to be sealed with a metal grate in 1980 after a failed body recovery, but the grate was missing. Determined to explore further, they took off their air tanks, pushing them through the tunnel while breathing through hoses. Then, disaster struck. Richard's tank got jammed in the narrow tunnel. Clark saw Richard swimming frantically, screaming without his mouthpiece or tank. With no way to free it, they had to leave it behind. Desperation filled the air as Clark pulled Richard out of the narrow entrance, and they began buddy breathing, a last-ditch survival method where one diver breathes while the other holds their breath, sharing the remaining tank as they tried to ascend. Their race against time began as they swam upward toward the surface, navigating through the third chamber. As they made their way back, they navigated through the second chambers. But just when they thought they were getting closer to safety, they took a wrong turn and ended up in a false chimney, a dead end. Their tank, which they held upwards to navigate the well, made a terrifying thunk sound. That was when they knew they'd reached a dead end. And also, their last tank was out of air. Clark, who was with the tank, had just taken a full breath before the air ran out. Knowing they were in deep trouble, he turned and swam out of the false chimney as fast as he could. He made it out of the well, but Richard wasn't so lucky. Without the last breath, Richard couldn't make it. Clark waited, hoping Richard might somehow surface, but he never did. Heartbroken, Clark called the police for help. Don got the rescue call and was at Jacob's Well within an hour. He was stunned to find out that it was two of his students. They were expert divers, but cave diving was something else altogether. The lower chambers were clouded with silt, so they had to wait until morning to recover Richard's body. Clark described exactly where Richard was trapped in the false chimney. The next day, Don led the recovery mission and found Richard right where Clark had said. But by this time, Richard Patton was already dead. He had run out of air. Trapped in the labyrinthine cave he had set out to conquer. Bringing his body to the surface was a sad task, marking the end of a tragic dive and an intense search. This tragedy wasn't just a heartbreaking loss for Patton's family and friends. It sent shockwaves through the diving community. Jacob's Well was always known to be dangerous, but this incident underscored just how perilous it could be. After Patton's death, calls for stricter safety measures grew louder. Some even suggested closing off parts of the cave system entirely to prevent such incidents from ever happening again. The loss of Richard Patton was a wake-up call that highlighted the need for better safety protocols and regulations at Jacob's Well. Sure enough, the authorities did all they could to ensure Jacob's Well would claim no more lives. First off, stricter regulations were put in place. Divers now needed permits to explore the caves. These permits were not just handed out freely. Divers had to demonstrate a certain level of expertise and familiarity with cave diving. This measure ensured that only those with adequate training and experience could venture into the well's depths. Equipment standards were also tightened. Divers were required to carry more sophisticated gear, including extra lights and guide ropes. The importance of redundant systems was emphasized, meaning divers had to have backups for essential equipment like air tanks and lights. This was crucial because equipment failure in such an environment could easily lead to death. Moreover, there was a push for better training. Dive shops and training programs started offering specialized courses in cave diving. These courses focused on navigation techniques, emergency procedures, and stress management underwater. The idea was to equip divers with the skills needed to handle the unique challenges of cave diving, such as low visibility and disorientation. Signs and warnings were also posted around Jacob's Well, informing divers and swimmers of the risks. These warnings served as a constant reminder of the well's dangers, discouraging casual or ill-prepared dives. Additionally, informational sessions and briefings became standard practice for anyone seeking a diving permit. Rescue protocols were also reviewed and improved. Local dive teams conducted regular drills to stay prepared for emergencies. These drills included practicing rescue missions in low visibility conditions and coordinating with medical personnel for quick response in case of accidents. But despite these measures and known risks, Jacob's Well is still a popular spot. People swim in the cool waters, and divers still explore its depths. But the memory of past tragedies, including the 1983 incident, lingers. The signs and warnings posted around the well serve as a constant reminder of the tragic death of Richard Patton. So, as we enjoy the natural beauty of places like Jacob's Well, let's also remember those who have lost their lives in the pursuit of adventure. Their stories are not just tales of tragedy, but also lessons that help us navigate the thin line between thrill and danger. So, next time you dive into the depths or embark on a risky adventure, remember the story of Richard Patton and Jacob's Well, and stay safe out there. Now, if you found this story thrilling, you need to check out the other awesome videos on our channel. Thanks for watching.